need to know who to vote for. They need to know how to decide who to vote for. And so education and educating the public has become a very, very important part of the League's mission. We are nonpartisan. We will take positions on issues after we have studied them, but we never back parties or candidates in any way, shape, or form. So today's forum is for State's Attorney for Peoria County, and our two candidates are the incumbent, Jodi, and Mr. Robert Boucher, who is a lawyer. So you were all asked if you wanted to take a note card to write a question on. Please be aware, if you ask a question, we only accept questions in written form. This is not a town hall type meeting. Those have a tendency to get out of hand sometimes. So if you have a question, please write it down and make sure that it is aimed at both candidates and is not for just one. It has to be towards both candidates. Okay, we hope you'll walk away from this today with more information about our two candidates so that you can make a good decision based on what you feel is important. If you have a question that you've written, just hold up the card. Sue and I will be around, and Kim will be also around. Eileen is around. To pick up your question. If you don't have a card, if you think of a question, raise your hand. We've got cards, we'll pass them out to you. Okay. Our moderator today is Connie Romanis, who is our current League president. And yes, the League Women Voters is open to men, and we have had men as presidents. So please, we just decided and I was a member then, when we voted to allow men to become full-fledged members of the League of Voters. It was a conscious choice not to change our name because we had name recognition. Nothing against you guys. Okay, name recognition. Also, just one, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Connie so we can get started.
Thank you, Irene. Can you hear me okay in the back? Yeah. Great. Well, again, welcome to everyone, and thank you to the Peoria Public Library, North Branch, for allowing us to use this space, and for the candidates to take up their time, and for all of you to take time out of your Saturday morning. The state's attorneys, there are 102 counties in Illinois, and the state's attorneys serve as the chief legal representative for each of those counties. Some of their things under their purview are to set charging priorities and policies within the office that address systemic inequality within the criminal legal system, to create and implement innovative programs that divert people out of the criminal legal system before they incur a criminal record that will follow them all their lives, to work in Springfield with other states' attorneys and advance or oppose legislation that will impact the criminal legal system, including measures that require additional police accountability and address racial inequities in the system. Our candidates have agreed to the rules for the debate, which is for a 2-minute opening statement and a closing statement at the end of 2 minutes, and 1 minute each to answer the questions that you have proposed. They also drew cards to see who would go first, and Attorney Boucher was the winner. So the first question will go to them. Attorney Boucher, can you tell us what your qualifications are and why you are a candidate for this office?
Well, good morning, everyone.
You forgot opening statement.
Yes.
Oh.
That's what I thought. But I was ready to go.
Please
have 2 minutes.
Is the mic on? You're good? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you so much for attending.
You need to stay behind the table so we're live streaming you.
Thank you. I am Robert Boucher. I am the Republican candidate for Peoria County State's Attorney. This is a very important election for the people of Peoria County. A little bit of my background, and they said I should only talk for 2 minutes. I can't even discuss what the weather's like today for 2 minutes. So let me try to get through this very quickly. I am hometown raised, and I'm hometown proud. I started down in the 61605, attended St. John's Grade School, and I might put a plug in for St. John's. We had our first homecoming at the Elks Club last night up on Martin Luther King Drive. I graduated from Limestone High School, attended Illinois Central College, the University of Illinois, and then graduated from law school at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. I came back, chose to come back and open my office. 1 minute. Oh, golly. Anyway, I'm married to Elizabeth Enright, my wife. We've been married for 37 years. She is an Irish immigrant who was a nurse for years, went to law school. She now works as an attorney for the federal judiciary. I am so proud we raised our daughter, who is in the audience today, Claire Adams, and my son-in-law, Chris Adams. Claire was raised here, and she now lives in Chicago with our first grandson, Casey Robert Adams, who is the joy of our life. The reason I'm running for this is we need help. This is a very, very important job. And as the Teachers Federation said last August, we are in a crisis. Would someone please step up and take control of it? I've practiced law for 43 years throughout the United States, throughout most of the counties in the state of Illinois. There are 102 counties. I've been to most of them. What I bring is my expertise, and I can't read. It's time for me to stop. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. I do see some familiar faces out here, but for those that may not know anything about me, let me tell you a little bit about my background. I grew up in a small farm community in central Nebraska, population 231, including pets. I grew up with 3 older brothers, and we loved all things outdoors and sports. And when I was 12, my father was killed in a car accident. The case later went to court where I had to testify. It was the first time I had ever stepped foot inside a courthouse, let alone a courtroom. But I saw from that experience the impact the court system has on people's lives. And I knew outside that courthouse that I was going to spend my career inside of one. So I went to law school at Nebraska. After I graduated, I knew the biggest impact on people's lives was the prosecutor's office. And that's where I came, to the Peoria County State's Attorney's Office. I started as an assistant state's attorney right out of law school, and I was an assistant state's attorney in this office for about 15 years in every courtroom that we have: juvenile, misdemeanor, domestic, felony, traffic. I tried over 150 jury trials and over 50 murder cases. When I left the office, I was the chief of the criminal division. In 2014, the Illinois Supreme Court appointed me to the bench, and I became your Peoria County Circuit Judge. During that 5 years on the bench, I handled a variety of civil cases, including multi-million-dollar personal injury claims. In 2019, your former state's attorney, Jerry Grady, passed away in office, and the county board asked me if I would step off the bench and take the seat. It wasn't an easy decision. Being a circuit judge certainly pays more and does less work, but I knew it was the right decision. And my career has always been about making the right decision. And I chose to become your state's attorney to try and make a difference in our community. And hopefully with your vote and support, I can remain there. Thank you.
Thank you both. And now we will go to the first question. Attorney Boucher, can you tell us what your qualifications are and why you are a candidate for this office?
I'm a candidate for this office, and I have really, it is a tradition. I am kind of following in the last 2 out of 3 state's attorneys. In 1988, Kevin Lyons was in private practice. He ran against a guy named Mark Stewart. And Mark Stewart kept saying, has no prosecutorial experience, has no prosecutorial experience. Guess what? That was correct. Kevin Lyons won that seat and went on to become the longest-serving state's attorney in Peoria County history. Ms. Hoos is correct. She's been in one courthouse, one, good, bad, or in between, Peoria. That's the only place she has ever been. As I told you, I've been throughout most of the counties in the state of Illinois, have tried federal cases in Cookeville, Tennessee, not sitting on the bench, but sitting with people that were injured and watching their lives, whether good, bad, or in between. I've done all those things. I've been to the appellate court. I've tried federal cases, tried state cases. But I want to go back again to the tradition. I do follow rules.
That's why you repeat that question.
I think, thank you. I kind of explained something on the front end. I have spent my entire career in the Peoria County Courthouse because this is the Peoria County State's Attorney, not the Tazewell or the Cook or the DuPage or the Kankakee. It's the Peoria County State's Attorney's Office, and my entire career has been within the walls of that courtroom or courthouse, in every courtroom, civil and criminal. We have, some of the most violent cases these days, and some of the biggest cases I've personally handled over the last 20 years. The Nathan Luthold murder case that was on Dateline, I did with Jerry Brady. The couple that starved their young child to death last year, I handled that. So we need to look at experience in this race because experience does matter. And yes, Mr. Boucher has traveled across the state handling civil or criminal defense, but he's never prosecuted a case, not one. And I think you need somebody with experience as your state's attorney. Thank you.
May I respond to that?
I don't believe so, thank you. Our next question is, and again, we will now start alternating. And so, Attorney Hoos, what are the two biggest challenges you will face in the coming term?
Great question. I think number one is our youth. Number one, when I started out as an assistant state's attorney nearly 25 years ago now, most of our violent criminals, the people who were committing murders and shootings, were in their 20s, 23, 24, 25, 26, some 30s. We don't see that now. Now those individuals that are committing the most violent crimes, shooting people, killing people, are 14, 15, 16, and 17 years of age. And that's not a state's attorney problem, that's a society problem. I say all the time, if a juvenile committing a violent crime comes across my desk, then we've already failed as a society because I only have one choice left with this person. I mean, if they killed somebody, I can't put them on probation. That's a danger to the community. So I think that's the biggest challenge. The second is getting trust from our community back in place for law enforcement in general, not just the state's attorney's office, but I think the police departments have taken a major hit and we need to get that trust back in them as well.
Attorney Boucher, would you like me to repeat that?
Yes, please.
What are the two biggest challenges that will be faced by the state's attorney in the coming term?
The biggest challenge that's going to be faced in the next term is Ms. Hoos was appointed on September 1st, 2019. Part of the problem with the office now is imploding. Quite frankly, people are leaving the office, dozens and dozens of people, because part of what a leader does, a leader tries to bring the assistants up with them. Try to convince the state's attorney, the assistant state's attorneys, that it is a worthwhile endeavor to engage in public service. So part of it is going to be try to recreate an office that has, quite frankly, imploded under Ms. Hoos. She can say what she wants about prosecuting this, and I will tell you this, and it is true. Juvenile court is an absolutely integral part of our system, because I agree with her. We must have our youth. Truthfully important. Since she has been state's attorney, she has had 5 different people trying to run the juvenile division, and they have all left her office. The question is, why?
And, sir, you want the next one? Next, you will start first with the next questions. So what would you add to the public good if elected to this position?
I'm sorry.
What could you add to the public good if
What
you
if-
were elected?
Thank you. One of the things is people have to trust the office. There might be old-fashioned lines, but the fact of the matter is being respectful, being different. I look at this office as a people's office, so we have to open this up so when the people have questions, we might come together and discuss and try to see if we can get a solution or an answer. When people have problems, it's our obligation to try to help them solve that. It is true in our juvenile court system, and now I see the state's attorney is implementing some of the ideas that I've had over and over again with juveniles, and that is we have to have a specialty court. We can't slap them on the hands and send them back out. We have to do things like make sure they're being monitored, make sure they're on home confinement. If they need our assistance, mental health, or dealing with drug addiction or alcohol addiction, we must assume that role, because what we have now with our children, and I'm always telling people, think about this. It used to be reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now you know what we tell our children? It's reading, writing, arithmetic, and ducking in case an intruder comes in to cause you harm. Who can live like that? Years from now, will our children's children say, back in 2024, they could have done something. They did nothing, and this is a mess that we inherited.
C follows the directions on the first two questions. I bring strength. I bring strength to this community. Everyone knows my career. It has been 25 years of public service, a public servant in the face of all of you. I've attended many of these forums, both as a judge, as my first race as state's attorney, and now here today. Everybody knows what my background is and what I bring, and I bring strength. I stare down murderers in courtrooms and comfort victims of child abuse. And that's the most important thing that the state's attorney can have and do, both for their assistants in the office, for those in the courthouse, and those in the community. I've tried the biggest cases successfully, and we've put away the most violent criminals successfully. That's the strength that I bring in this case, or in this race, and I think that's one of the most important things the state's attorney can have. Thank you.
Then you will also have the next question.
That's correct.
Yes. So, what are your thoughts on how to reduce lengthy delays and that often stretch cases into very costly and multi-year affairs?
Yeah, lengthy delays are difficult, especially for the prosecutor's office, because the defense likes to delay. The defense wants to continue, because they eventually will wear down the victim or the witness. The victim will maybe die or maybe move away, or the witness just says, you know what, I'm done with this. So delays are a real issue, and we stress with the judge, we object to continuances. We stress to the judge all of those reasons, the expense, the time, but at the end of the day, any continuance is up to the judge. We can only do so much in arguing against them, but they're ultimately up to the judge. The other thing that's critical is making sure people know what they're doing. My opponent recently was the defense attorney in a murder case where it was twice a mistrial because of the defense. That caused a huge delay for victims in our community of a murder case, a first-degree murder, and those are real challenges.
And again, Attorney Boucher, what are your thoughts on how to reduce lengthy delays that often stretch cases into costly and multi-year affairs?
Well, part of the way to reduce the delays is we have to have a state's attorney who's in the courthouse. We have to have a state's attorney, and I hear all this about I'm prosecuting this and I'm prosecuting that. I'm in the courthouse every single day. I've never seen Miss Hoos in a courtroom. I've never seen her in the courthouse. I've suggested that when I grew up down on the south side and I went to work at Caterpillar, at building KK, the first thing I was trained, you clock in and you clock out, because guess what? That's how you get paid. She has the ability to provide to us her work record, though when she checks in the courthouse and when she doesn't. We could go back September 1st in 2019. She can do that, but she doesn't want to do that. But I will tell you about delay, and we can talk about her office, People versus Boyce, a case that was decided by the 4th District Appellate Court on February 16th, 2024, which the decision basically said the state's attorney's office needs to know how to count. You got to try somebody within 120 days. They didn't do it. The case was reversed, and the conviction was sent back.
And Attorney Hoos, Attorney Boucher, you have the next question.
Thank you.
I realize we don't have enough.
No, that's fine.
in
Thank
between.
you.
So the question is Justice in Peoria County blind to defendant's race and/or financial situation, and please explain your answer.
It should be, but quite frankly, if Ms. Hoos would take the time to go and visit places like the Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity, we know that it's not. And if she would take advantage of Mayor Ali's safety network that is conducted in District 150, where people come together and they're trying to solve the issues of crime, just not our police agencies, but religious-based institutions, social and civic organizations. So many people are trying to solve these particular problems that we have. We all know when you have, and I'll sum it up this way, when you have Manual High School way down on the south side, when it's being sprayed with gunfire, that's what we have to work on. Those are the issues that we have to deal with. We have to try to figure out, people in Peoria County are afraid. And as Ms. Hoos will tell you, she was head of this division or that division. My question is this: if she were head of the felony division, why did the county board go outside and bring in somebody who does what I do, Jerry Grady, to become the state's attorney? She was there. Why did they bypass her? That's the question that the people in Peoria County, the fact of the matter is, she is from a town of 231 people in Nebraska. She knows nothing about Peoria County.
Can you repeat?
Yes, I will.
Sorry.
Is justice in Peoria County blind to a defendant's race and/or financial situation? Explain your position.
Yeah, that's a good question. It should be, but it isn't. I mean, we know that, right? But I don't think that's just Peoria County. I think that's justice in general. And that's why we have such a push to bring everybody to the table from all walks of life. You know, I intentionally recruit and promote people of all shapes and sizes. Every race, religion, color, background. You know, I'm from a small town in Nebraska. My first assistant is from the suburbs in Cook County, because that's what our office should reflect. We should reflect our community and those who are in it. And I intentionally seek individuals that make up our whole community. But it's not just the criminal side. You know, it's jury selection. You know, I was proud when I was on the bench that I was one of the judges to help participate in getting more jurors from other parts of our area, from the 61605 zip code, because we're not going to have a fair system if we don't have jurors made up of the entire county as well. So it's not just a state's attorney issue, it's an issue across the entire courtroom.
And then are you there?
Yeah.
The next question. There's been a large amount of home repair fraud acts and numerous victims, some senior citizens. How would you act upon this criminal activity and make justice serve the victims of this crime?
Yeah, those are always difficult cases on the charging side, but extremely important cases. You know, if you have a home and somebody comes in and does some scheme or fraud against you, and you give them money and then you don't get your home fixed or your fence painted or whatever the issue is, those are complex cases. We have a number of them that we've had over the summer. The good thing about those cases, these criminals are dumb. So they do them all over the place. It's not just Peoria County. It's Peoria, and Tazewell, and Woodford, and Stark, and McHenry. And the great part about just my background and experience in the office is all the other fellow state's attorneys know me, and they know my charging division. So we work in concert together. Okay, who has this person in custody? Do they currently have a better case? Do they charge first? Do we charge next? Do we wait on our financial records now that that person's already in prison, and then we can get a stronger case as opposed to the one on the front end? So there's a lot that goes into it, but those are definitely important cases.
Attorney Boucher, you have the next question. The Pretrial Fairness Act of 2021.
Wait, I want a response.
I was first on that question.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Going to be a short answer, because you know what we all want? We want people to be honest with us. Just tell us what the facts are so we can make a decision. Well, Ms. Hoos tells you about how she cooperates with other charging agencies, Tazewell, Woodford. You would know why she brought it up? People were charged. The individuals were charged in Tazewell and Woodford. They were convicted and they went to jail. She has not prosecuted the case for Peoria County residents. That's why she brought it up.
You will also have first response. to the Pretrial Fairness Act of 2021, repeal cash bail requirements. That has been in effect for more than a year. What are your thoughts on it? Good, bad, or is the jury still out?
Well, I think it's still out because it was such a huge change. Everybody needs to understand, under the federal system, it used to be if somebody was charged, there was a presumption they're going to stay in, and defense lawyers had to ask, you need to release them on pretrial detention. It is shifted now to where what has happened is that everybody's presumed to be non-detainable. The state's attorney's office must file a petition, provide to the court sufficient evidence for the court to make a determination as to whether or not they have a propensity to flee or they have a propensity to commit future offenses. We know how that has played out in the Childers case, because Ms. Hoose's office presented bare bones documents to one of our judges, released Mr. Childers. They picked him up in Tazewell County and he was detained because part of the facts were he pointed a pistol at a police officer. So that's how these cases are handled. It's now the burden of the state's attorney's office. And I will tell you now, I don't need an assistant to do these. I will handle the detention hearings myself, because that's what judges do. You have to have facts and you have to have evidence.
I'm glad he brought up the Childers case, because I'm sure most of you probably aren't familiar with it. But it's a case we did try to detain. It's the case where an individual pointed a gun at a police officer. We immediately filed charges and immediately went into court and asked the judge to detain. But the judge didn't. That's not on us. That's on the courts. So we are doing the things we should. As far as the Safety Act, the initial, I remember being here 4 years ago and discussing it, because at that time, that's when this current or undercurrent was just rolling, and it was no cash bail. We shouldn't be housing people in the Peoria County Jail because they can't afford to be there. I think we would all agree on that, right? We keep people there because they're a danger, not because they couldn't pay their bond. And that was the goal of the Safety Act. Did it have some problems on the front end? Of course it did. Did the language need cleared up, and did we need a bigger expandable net? Of course we did. Are there still things that we can continue to work on? Of course. But at the end of the day, I think everybody would agree, no matter what political side of the aisle you're on, everyone would agree someone should not stay in jail because they can't afford to get out.
The next question is, public defense services and oversight in adult criminal cases are lacking across much of Illinois. Should Illinois consider implementing a public defenders commission to better support defendants' Sixth Amendment right to independent representation?
Yes, I am 100% in favor of looking at the public defender side of it, because so many times, everybody has tried to fix the police and fix the prosecutors, but we're missing a very key part, the public defense. And just as prosecutors need more resources, so do the public defender's office. Mr. Boucher brings up the staffing issues. Everywhere's having staffing issues, including prosecutors' offices and including public defenders' offices. And so they need better resources. We are never going to have a just criminal justice system without both parties in play here. You can't be top heavy on the state's attorney's side, and you can't be top heavy on the public defender's side. You've got to have equal parts that can keep everything moving along. And I think far too long, the public defender's office has gone under the radar. Nobody even knows where it is or what it's about. And I hope to change that. I'm going to be, assuming I get your support and vote and win this election, I'm actually president of the Illinois State's Attorneys Association, and that's one of our focuses.
Yes.
Public defense services and oversight in adult criminal cases are lacking across much of Illinois. Should Illinois consider implementing a public defenders commission to better support defendants' Sixth Amendment rights to independent representation?
Absolutely. Understand the United States Constitution protects all of us, even individuals who are charged with crimes have the right to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And it does come down to staffing, and I think that Ms. Hoos is correct. There may be staffing issues all throughout the country. Assistant state's attorneys, you got to have to understand how this works. You have a state's attorney who leads the office, and then you have a number of assistant state's attorneys. But I would suggest to you, you don't have to look very far. Ms. Hoos says she has staffing problems. Kevin Johnson doesn't in Tazewell County, 7 miles away. You should ask yourself the question, why in the world is this office imploding? Should the leader of the office, the boss of the office, rather than empowering individuals, they are being overpowered. Perhaps she needs to look in the mirror and say, is there something I can do different to keep these people? Because what you need to do is recruit, train, mentor, most importantly, you retain them to stay in the office. That, when you have a sophisticated state's attorney's office, it also helps the public defenders because everybody then is on the same
And
page.
the next question you will respond to first, how do you see the correlation of juvenile abuse and neglect cases and youth who then commit crimes as juvenile delinquents in the state's attorney's role?
Well, the state's attorney's role, look, we all have to be very honest about this. As a society, we have children now, they may be second or third generation, they've been raised in dysfunctional homes. If you raise dysfunctional children, they become dysfunctional adults. We have to use our resources. We have to care. We have to respectfully look at them and say, how can we help you? Because in the criminal system, you want to have specific deterrence. What that means is this individual will not commit future offenses. You also need general deterrence, which says if you commit a crime in Peoria County, understand something. You have choices. Your choices have consequences. We are going to deal because nobody in Peoria, everybody I talk to, and I ask them all the same thing. Ms. Hughes was appointed September 1st, 2019. Do you feel safer? You know what everybody says? They're shooting our schools, they're shooting us, they're hijacking our cars, they're kicking in our doors. No, they don't feel safer. And as Maya Angelou once said, when somebody keeps showing you who they are, you need to believe them. And it's my position, the reason I'm running for this is Ms. Hughes is an absentee state's attorney who does not work for the people. Thank you.
You also.
So I do want to talk about the juvenile abuse side because I don't think a lot of people know about that. So juvenile delinquency, that's when a kid commits a crime, right? They pick up a gun and shoot somebody. We're obviously going to put them away and deal with that case. But the abuse side is when their parents harm them. You know, they neglect them or they physically harm them. And that is a huge piece of what we do on the juvenile side because most of those victims are very likely to then be perpetrators themselves as adults. So those are the kids that we need to protect. You know, I'm very proud of Kiwi in our office. And some of you may not even know who this is, but it's our facility dog. And Kiwi I brought in for kids who come through our system to help comfort them because they're already going to be harmed in some way. They're already going to be traumatized. So Kiwi's there to help make it a smoother and better system for her. If we can help them on the abuse side, then maybe they're less likely to be on the delinquent side in another year or two. We need to keep them safe, younger, and not have to deal with them when they're older.
Thank you. And the next question. State's attorney is arguably the most powerful person in Peoria County. How would you guys handle that power, using it as a bully pulpit to get out and the public, for example, or to mentor, to build relationships with other law enforcement, or to maintain distance and reserve?
That's a great question. Everybody knows I'm not running for a title. I gave up a much bigger one. I gave up the title of circuit judge that covers 5 counties to be the Peoria state's attorney in 1 county. My opponent, you know, he's 73 years of age and touts his 40 years of experience. I don't know why he's running to be the state's attorney. Is it because of a title? I'm not because of a title. And it does have to be tempered and it has to be measured. We want a criminal justice system and a society that looks at the office as a measured and tempered office. And the person in charge of that has to be that. You can't be a fly off the handle, pointing your finger and yelling at people. That's not the scene that a community wants. They want somebody with a measured and tempered mindset and not somebody looking for a title. And that's what you have with me. I will treat every case the same, no matter where it comes from or where it's going. Thank you.
And Attorney Boucher. The state's attorney is arguably the most powerful person in Peoria County. How would you guys handle that power, using it as a bully pulpit and get out in the public as an example or mentor, or build relationships with police and other attorneys, or maintain distance and reserve?
I am a coalition builder. Ms. Hughes can tell you what she wants. All you have to do is go back on TV and look. Has she ever appeared with our chief or with the mayor talking about the violence in Peoria? No. She showed up about Kiwi. She's on about that. Has she ever talked about our youth that are being killed every single day? No. Because she talks about my age. Let me tell you something. I've been working hard my whole life. If I wasn't able to work as hard as I can for the people of Peoria County, I wouldn't be standing here. The reason I'm here, she is not doing her job. She can talk about that she is going to do this, she's going to do that. I've already asked her, why doesn't she give us her work attendance record? We're entitled to it. We're taxpayers. If we're paying somebody the money that we pay her, why doesn't she say, this is where I'm at the courthouse? A leader leads, and you have to take young state's attorneys and you have to bring them up with you and convince them that it is worth public service, it's a worthwhile endeavor. That's why I'm here, and I'll be real blunt, since she's being blunt. If Jerry Brady were state's attorney, I would not be running in this case because Jerry Brady had the heart of a public servant.
Attorney Boucher, how would you best work with the county board, local police departments, and sheriff's department?
I have mentioned the fact, the one thing to do, and I hear from police officers, county deputies, city police officers. I heard the other day an astounding fact. In the 5 years that Ms. Hoos has been state's attorney, not one time has she walked in and introduced herself to the city of Peoria Police Department, nor the county sheriff's department. I intend, and all they keep complaining is, can't get a phone call back from her office on major cases. I intend to take state's attorneys and assign them 2 afternoons a week at the county, the sheriff's department, the city, so they don't have to keep calling, asking, why or did you not tell us? We had a case, I see it all the time, had a third shift officer, gets up out of bed, comes down, we're paying him overtime to come down, plus interfering with his life, only to show up, and her office continued the case at 9 o'clock in the morning. The officer shows up at 1:30. Not one person bothered to call the officer and say, you can stay home and sleep. We don't need you. The case is being continued.
Thank you.
You know, just because he says this stuff doesn't mean it's true. I really don't even know what he's talking about. I have a great relationship with the chief of police, a great relationship with the sheriff. We built the Greater Peoria Auto Crimes Task Force together, which brought in $9 million in grant funding for our community. I have worked with the ironic thing about Sheriff Watkins is he used to be a detective on my cases when I was an assistant state's attorney. So not only have we worked together the last few years since he's been sheriff, but we've worked together for the last 2 decades because he was my witness when I was an assistant state's attorney. So, you know, I don't know what he says when he says this stuff because it's just not true. It's not reality. I have a great working relationship with the Peoria Police Department, as does my office. I have a great working relationship with the Peoria County Sheriff's Department, as does my office. But I also have a great working relationship with Chillicothe and Martinville and Elmwood and all those other police departments that people probably don't think of on a daily basis, but we interact with them on a daily basis.
Well, stay standing.
I've learned.
How would you address investigations or charges of individuals who are political supporters, politically powerful or influential in the community? When is it appropriate, if ever, to recuse yourself from a case?
That is a great question. And ironically, I'm presenting on this with the National District Attorneys Association in November to nationwide other states' attorneys and district attorneys. So everyone has to be treated fairly, everybody. It doesn't matter if somebody supported you in a campaign or was against you in a campaign. They have to be treated the same, whether it's the mayor of Bartonville or the police chief of Peoria. Somebody cannot be treated differently because of their title, their income, where they're from, or what their last name is. That has always been my motto. I have prosecuted police officers in my career. I've prosecuted elected officials in my career. And I stress that to my new attorneys, that we treat every case exactly the same, no matter who the person is. That's the defendant.
And Attorney Boucher, how would you address investigations or charges of individuals who are political supporters, politically powerful or influential in the community? And when would it be appropriate to recuse yourself from a case?
Well, when you have close connections, if we go back, and I can only point out to everybody, we've had an issue with WTVP as far as embezzlement of funds, and of course have the Attorney General looking at it, have the feds looking at it, but we don't have looking at it is Ms. Hoose's office. And I always wonder, since Andrew Rand, who was chairman of WTVP at the time, was the individual that appointed her state's attorney when he was president of the county board. I don't know if there's a connection there. I'm just raising the issue. It makes one stop and ponder and wonder, well, I don't know what she says she does, but does she do what she says? The fact of the matter is, like I said, we've asked for records of her attendance. We've asked for records. She indicated at WCBU that she only had 12 or 15 people left the office, and that was national attrition. She either doesn't know what's going on in her office, or she doesn't care because she's had more than 36 people leave. And when we get down talking about how important the juvenile court is, I can tell you, since she's been there, this is how many.
But you also get to start the next question.
Yes.
Do you see opportunities for streamlining police departments around the country? Wouldn't that make prosecuting easier if it was more uniform in terms of reporting and formatting? And are there obstacles to seeking greater efficiency?
Well, look, we have to be willing to do the hard work. I told somebody with technology, we have police departments. This is not a real mental jump. We also have state's attorneys. They have to go through what's called continuing legal education. We pay for it. People pay for it. I mean, this is a taxpayer-funded office, $6 million, 55 plus people. There's a reason why Ms. Hoos can't manage them. She has no administrative experience. But in this particular case, you could have, if we have an individual that goes and attends a continuing legal education, why can't we Zoom it? If it's one of the issues that just came out about the odor of raw marijuana, the odor of burnt marijuana, why couldn't somebody from the state's attorney's office Zoom to all those police departments? I've been in every city in the county of Peoria. You know how big our county is? 633 square miles. I've been to every city in Peoria County because what I tell them, from the skyline of the riverfront to the pastures in Elmwood, I'm going to be there representing everybody because they also have issues on prosecution. Thank you.
Technologies are in this arena. Technology is what can help all of the departments be more streamlined and more efficient. When I came back to the state's attorney's office, we were still doing everything on paper and thumb drives and CDs. And that's what we turned over all the police reports on. We'd have an officer come in and drop something off on a thumb drive, and then we'd make a copy of it and send it out to the defense attorney on a thumb drive. And I realized that's a terrible way to do things. I mean, it's inefficient, it costs money, and it's a waste of time. So I was able to get an electronic discovery system. It's Axon. You've probably heard of it if you've ever watched a body camera, because that's the logo up in the top corner. They provide most of the body cameras for police departments, most of the squad car cameras, and most of the in-camera interview room cameras. We have partnered with them so that all comes to our office electronically, and then we send it out to the defense electronically. We are in the process of getting all those rural law enforcement agencies on board with us as well, and that's how you can make smaller jurisdictions more efficient. Stay up, I think I'm first.
What role, other than prosecuting crimes, does the state's attorney have in making our communities safer? And please give some specific suggestions.
Yeah, so most people don't realize that the state's attorney is actually the civil attorney for the county and for the county board and for all elected officials in the county. I don't think I really appreciated that when I was an assistant state's attorney because I just dealt with the criminal side. But since I've been the state's attorney, we went through COVID, so I was the attorney for the health department. We went through a referendum involving an auditor, which had to go through my office. We went through the closure of Headington Oaks. We are now in wind farms and solar farms, all civil litigation that the state's attorney handles, aside from criminal cases. One of the things I'm most proud of, and if you saw the news recently, I just did a press conference on opioid settlement funds. I was able to secure $4.2 million for Peoria County. $4.2 million to help combat opioid deaths going forward. And that's a huge part of being the state's attorney that most people don't realize.
Attorney Boucher, what role other than prosecuting crimes does the state's attorney have in making our community safer? And please offer some specific suggestions.
As far as prosecuting or respond to the last question by Ms. Hughes, I'm sorry.
That is the last question, other than prosecuting crimes.
Well, what we do, understand something, the prosecution of crimes, Ms. Hughes is correct, there are two sides of the state's attorney's office. Statutorily, state's attorney's office on the civil side defends the county in any lawsuits. On the criminal side, what happens is you have police agencies, they investigate crimes, it then goes to the charging division, and make a determination, does it fall in the felony division, does it fall in the misdemeanor, does it fall in traffic, does it fall in juvenile delinquency or neglect? All of these things that we do when we're prosecuting crimes, it has to be, you have to know the areas that you're talking about. Now, Ms. Hughes can tell you what she has done. Many of these things, they're just technological advances that are being worked through the system. We can use so many things, like I said, zooming to our police officers before they go out on the squad. But what I truly believe is, one of the things that I've always said is, the state's attorney should be more active. If I'm state's attorney, I'm going to go to the high schools, I'm going to have lunch with the kids every week to tell them a couple things. Obey your parents, obey your teachers. Please don't have your name come across my desk because there are consequences for your choices. That's how we deal with it.
And the next question is, what, if anything, did we learn during COVID and the management of the office that you would do differently in the legal system, the court system?
Well, part of it, I think what COVID did, so everybody understands, it turned the system upside down. We went from having in-courtroom appearances where it was on Zoom. Many things worked out much smoother. I was just in court yesterday on some civil cases, and quite frankly, there were a lot of people Zooming in. So it's smoothed it down. What I think truly what COVID did, it spurred on the technology. It spurred on us looking to see, and of course, we all know we're dealing with AI and things like that. But these are things that if you're paying attention to the office, if you're in the office, these are things that you can help Peoria County citizens. I tell people all the time, we pay the state's attorney a lot of money to run this office. The question is, you can't run an office like that, whether it's dealing with technology, training young prosecutors without being there. Some people feel that they can work remotely and you can't do it. You have to lead, you have to convince your assistant state's attorneys it's a worthwhile endeavor.
So COVID was rough. We all know that, right? In every aspect of our life. Lots of counties just shut down. They didn't move forward on cases. They didn't move forward on trials. In fact, I don't think Cook County did a trial for over a year, maybe even 2. But guess what Peoria County did? We kept moving. We kept moving on trials. We didn't stop because crime wasn't going to stop for us. So we kept moving. We had jury trials. In fact, I remember we did 2 murder trials in 1 week, and we had a COVID outbreak at the jail. So we had to have 2 mistrials and bring the juror, well, it wasn't a mistrial, we just brought the jurors back in a month because one of the defendants had COVID. Huge challenges that we met face to face and kept right on through and pushed through. We never stopped, and COVID was a big issue. I'm sorry, I thought you were raising your hand like you needed something. Okay. My time was about up.
Yeah, so the next question, and we've heard certainly a lot from neighboring states about the death penalty. Should the death penalty be reinstated in Illinois? If so, under what conditions would you seek that? Do you believe it has been sought out much too little or too much or too little in the past?
Well, that's an interesting question, only because we haven't had the death penalty in Illinois for several years. In fact, I think when I was an assistant is when the moratorium went in the early 2000s. So I haven't really thought about that issue in a long time. I don't know if we should go back to that. I'm never a fan of going back to something, but I will say this, I'm the advocate for the victim. That's my role as state's attorney. I don't do the defense work, although a lot of times as state's attorney, you do end up doing the defense work to make sure that prosecution is done correctly. But my role ultimately is for the victim. And I've always said this, if somebody comes in and shoots 5 people and kills them all, but they get the same sentence if they had just come in and shot 1, I'm not sure that's the answer. Because Victims 2, 3, 4, and 5 were freebies for it. That's not right either.
Attorney Boucher, should the death penalty be reinstated in Illinois? And if so, under what specific circumstances do you believe it's been sought out too much or too little in the past?
It should not be reinstated. There's a reason why we did away with the death penalty, because quite frankly, we use an old adage, 2 wrongs don't make it right. Now, Ms. Hoos is absolutely correct. One of the issues we have, and when I was at the Racial Equity and Justice Committee meeting last week, we have everybody involved in this. Somebody was saying, well, you know, this defendant, there have been saying that if you show mercy to the guilty, then you're injuring the innocent. But the fact of the matter is, as I told them, we have a couple different parties. We want to try to work with individuals that are engaging in criminal activity. You can't forget there's a victim. There's a victim who says, wait a minute, I'm the one that was shot. I understand you want to show them mercy. I really don't care why they did it, but I'm on the receiving end of this. But no, that is my response to that. It should not be reinstated.
Thank you. And it's time now for the closing statements. Actually, Attorney Hoos will finish.
Was this 2 minutes? I can't remember.
This is 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. You know, thank you again for being here. This is an important, elections are always important, but it's certainly important to hear who the people are, you know, so you know who are these individuals that you're voting for. You know, when I took office as the state's attorney, a couple things. One, I said I wanted to take this role to make a difference and not make money. I mean, that was my goal coming out of college and out of law school. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted a career where I could try and make a difference for my community and not just to make money. The other things that I focused on were violent criminals. I wanted to put violent criminals in check and be there for victims. So fight against violent crime and fight for victims. On the violent crime side, you know, we've convicted 44 murderers since I've been state's attorney. 44 murderers. That's a huge number. I'm not proud that we did that because that's a reflection of our society. You know, what are we doing wrong? But I also can't let those people go. We can't let them walk around among us when they've already chosen to take somebody's life. So we have been focused on violent crime. We've prosecuted over 100 shooting cases and 2,500 gun charges have been filed. Those are violent crimes that my staff has been working on every day. For the victim side of it, I hired a domestic violence investigator to help victims through court and a social worker to help them through life. Because at the end of the day, if we can't be the advocate for the victim, and if we can't then help them once the case is over, they're going to probably be a defendant at some point. So I've been very proud that in the last 5 years as your state's attorney, those have been my 2 focuses, fighting against violent crimes and fighting for victims. And I've done that. I've also done it all while saving the county $2 million in budget savings annually. That's a big chunk of change that I was able to give back to the county to use for other resources. So again, I thank you for being here today, and I would appreciate your vote and support going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Part of the reason I'm here is, as I said, my good friend Jerry Brady had the heart of a public servant. We can stand here and talk all day. Actions speak louder than words. When somebody keeps showing you who they are, you need to believe them. As I said, it's something very simple. Ms. Hoos has no administrative experience whatsoever. That's why her office is imploding. I'm in those courtrooms every day. You can ask her. She will tell you. She has state's attorneys that are gifted, that they're committed, and they leave her office. The question is, why? Why? Is it because they're not being treated with respect? Well, I don't have to speculate on this because I invite her to go back and get the videotape from January 25th of 2024, when I witnessed directly across from me, one of her administrators talked to 2 young women in such a derogatory fashion, they quit. Those are the facts. So we can talk about this all we want. We can also go back and she'll tell you, again, this is tradition for me. Everything for me serving on the Carver board, everything for me working with Greg Collins on Cops for Kids, Roger Gerken on American Lung Association. I taught our girls soccer, softball, and basketball for years in the diocese. The reason why Notre Dame High School has such perennial powerhouses in soccer. I was director of the Catholic Soccer Leagues. That's why we have that. But I can only submit this to you. You need, as John Kennedy once said, you think hard and you choose wisely. Ms. Hoos can spin her story any way she wants. I would suggest that you go and read an opinion by Justice Schmidt of the 3rd District Appellate Court that was issued on May 7th of 2015, where he said that Ms. Hoos engaged in the most vile form of prosecutorial misconduct where the case was reversed. That's what Justice Schmidt said. It's not what I'm saying. She says, I am saying this, go look it up. That's what I bring is honesty, hard work, and commitment to the people of Peoria County. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks to both of our candidates. I think they deserve a big. So remember, get out and vote. Early voting started last Thursday. And there's a sign on War Memorial Drive to remind you if you're going past the stadium. So,
And there's locations for early voting.
there's something up on the table at the back on
There's
locations
a list
for
of
early voting.
locations on your way out the door and the gates that they'll be open if you want to grab one for early voting.
And if you were thinking about the other group, what's the date? Leanne?
October 14th is the 46th Senate candidate forum. It will be live broadcast on WCBU's Facebook page. It'll actually be held over at ISU because that district covers part of McLean County. And it will be, then, I don't think, is Jim still here running?
Yep.
But have they decided when are they gonna live broadcast it or are they gonna delay broadcast?
I have not.
Okay, so I don't know that it'll be on the radio that night, but it will be live broadcast on WCBU and WGLT, and it will be on the Facebook page. So that's David Taylor versus Sally Owens, 46th District Senate.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
For being here.
You are.
Very happy library providers.
Good luck in the election.